you really can't get anything on the metal during this process. And I'm going to be wearing gloves after this for the totality of the glove build, except at certain points. And I'm going to be taking the gloves off in just a second to help this process along. But this is now another step in the process. Once you've sanded the piece entirely, and we're on the top now, I then begin with not as much force as I just was using, in small circles, to resand the surface. And you can see the halfway mark there of how different it's looking. I know my camera's not the best, but you can still see the scrapes and the the scrape mesh that it creates is much more web-like. You really start getting almost this spaghettification of the scrapes. You're creating a mesh. You're creating a very, very dense mesh of scrapes. And you do that by constantly adjusting and readjusting the pressure of these tiny circular sanding motions, getting lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter. And you're sanding now with the copper powder that you built up from the original sanding application you did in the beginning. And this starts smoothing it out. Now, you're going to be looking at this up close, and you see me blowing on it. That's very important. You're going to be looking at this up close as you're doing it, and you're going to be seeing scrapes and scrapes, and you're going to be going, oh my God, I'm ruining the metal. Don't worry about it. This is the mistake. Did you just see it? I finished sanding the piece, and I took my shirt, or towel, or whatever, which had been washed, which had some oils or residue or just dirt on it, and I gave it the tiniest of wipes. And that was the error. Once you sand this thing, evenly sand it, you have to blow that copper dust off and really make sure it's blown off. Do not touch the surface with anything, because I'm going to show you what's going to happen. But let's pretend I didn't for a second. So I'm showing you the piece. You can see all the little scrapes from the sandpaper. And you're thinking, now how is he going to fix that? Well, that's okay, because what we're going to do is going to completely eradicate them from the surface, even at close inspection. And it is a two-step process. Take your blowtorch. And I'm giving you my POV, my point of view. Now, if we were to switch my point of view around, you want it about 8 inches, 8 or 9 inches, depending on the torch strength, away from the bottom portion of your template, of your piece. So we're heating the bottom. It's very important that we do this in this order and with these distances and with this torch strength. And the torch strength, you'll see me jack it up just a little bit. It's just a little bit below full blast. And it's really important to have a fully filled can of propane. It has to be a brand new can to do this, because you're going to use 25% of your propane for one glove to get this. Because of, all the pieces involved, you're looking at 8 pieces, plus the back plate, which does involve a little bit of heat, but it's a different procedure, plus room for error. So you have to eke out 25% of your propane. If you start with less than that, you're not going to have, the flame might look the same, but it won't be, and you won't have enough heat. It's going to take longer to do this, and your metal will not get this color. Your metal will start shifting into other colors that you don't want. Start with a full can of propane to do this. Now watch what happens. 10 inches behind the bottom, with the magic tool, I'm holding and I am washing very gently the copper past the flame, and look what happens. The entire surface facing us has just washed away. It's basically eroded completely in this really cool effect. And I know what you're thinking, 2 things. That's not the color. And the other thing is, what's with all the water stains? Well, those aren't water stains. Those are residue stains, because the metal was not completely clean. So I don't have an even surface. Into the water it goes with the vinegar, because you only have 2 shots before you cannot use the metal with this process and this procedure. Because if you do it more than twice, you are altering the molecular structure of the alloy, and it becomes too soft and you can't get it back. You've got 2 quick shots at this. and then you've ruined the metal. So I did that mistake purposely. So if you make a mistake, don't worry. Just go through the process again. I've fast forward magically, sanded again. Here we go. Same piece, same exact piece. Watch me wash the metal over the flame. It suddenly shifts into a very brief red, and then all of a sudden the surface gives way. And you have to really watch, this is important, just enough to cover the surface and then take it off your flame. If you focus too much once that's happened, the metal will go completely dark, and you'll ruin the tan. You'll ruin the caramel. Now, I still know what you're thinking. That's still not the color. And look, it's not. And look, you can still see scrapes. This is ridiculous. You know, it's like, Travis, man, you told us you were going to have to do, tell us how to do this. You're a liar. Well, no, I'm not. So what we're going to do now is take a break and let this cool for approximately 4.5 to 5 minutes. Do not touch it. Do not look at it. Go and have a cigarette. I'll be right here. And we're back. 5 minutes have passed. The metal is still just under warm, okay? It's not completely cooled. You want to really get it right at the end where you can pick it up and it's just a little bit warm, like really like a fever, you know what I mean? And you'll notice I've taken off my gloves. Gloves are off, bitches. This part might gross you out. Take a look at the surface of this. Here's the trick. I am now taking, while I have oils on my hands, I'm taking the oil from my skin, from my forehead. Ew. And I am working it into this metal, very lightly, very quickly. And there you go. A perfectly matted out, perfectly colored, evenly distributed caramel, which matches the original piece. I wish my camera was better to pick the light and the color up on this. I can't goose it. I can't do anything about it. You got to trust me. And it will shift in different lights. The color will be more severe, less severe, da-da-da-da-da. And we're going to talk more about this color in a little while, because this is not the end. But this gives you that base color that you can work with and that will look totally authentic upon close inspection for really each of the razor gloves. Each of them start this way, except for the Part 6. Part 6 is a little different, but all the other ones do. And now you're an expert at creating the base caramel of the Part 1 and the Part 2 and the Kruger.com DESA Becker Clone razor glove. So we'll talk more about this in just a little while, I'm sure. This one was a very long segment. It didn't seem long to me, but I really hope you got something out of it. My big secret of how to get that, something that I enjoyed imparting to you. And we'll catch up more in a little bit in segment 6. And you might be wondering, yeah, I'm watching Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, the full screen version, versus widescreen, which, by the way, anybody who, makes movies or releases video, really, honestly, guys, production companies, if the film going public at this point doesn't understand that full screen is for retards, sorry, then they're never going to. Stop releasing films in full screen. I go to my shit video store, my $5 video store, and I find a great movie that I really want for $5 and I can afford it, and it's fucking full screen? Are you kidding me? Get with the 21st century. Oh, it won't fit my TV. It's cutting things off if it's widescreen. No, morons. You're cutting things off of the movie if it's full screen. You're missing half the movie. Get it together. Stop messing with my one passion that I have $5 to go and buy. If I had my druthers, I'd release this documentary in widescreen, but there's so much going on, I decided to do it full screen, so you can see everything. The widescreen letterboxing just adds a cinematic feel to things. It really does, and that's just the filmy in me, the filmmaker. So look, these things are matching up really well. I'm actually really, really pleased watching this. at how well. And this is, this is a man. This is a long process. It really, really is. And at every turn and every swipe and every tweak of metal, I'm like, oh God, please don't fuck this up. And yeah, there are little inconsistencies, but they're so minor. And that's all I want. I just want to get it to the minor degree of those inconsistencies, Because even as obsessive as I am, I know I have to call it a day at some point. And there are things I do let go, trust me. So we're just doing our final little tweaks to make sure the size and the contours are all identical. And things are looking really good. You'll notice I'm not doing I'm not doing any work really on the undersides of the top fantail areas. And that's really because I got really close on these pieces. There are other template pieces that I've already cut that I know full well that I made a bit of a goof on. And, I'll be doing, every now and then I'll do a little pickup work on those just to bring them into identical contours and bends if I've messed up a little bit. But I happen to do these two pieces that I'm working on, the piece here and the piece that's off screen. I happen to get those so close that I really didn't have to do any pickup work. I was really happy about that, which is the intent. And, this reworking of the metal every now and then, you have to redo a little detail, and I'm doing that little teardrop tweak on the end there because I lost it, gotten a bit rounded off with the sanding and the filing, so I brought that back. Again, metal muscle memory. And that's a detail that you can actually see, that little teardrop tweak on the left side looking at the arc of the piece. You can see that in the periodicals, in the production stills of Mr. Sandman from part 2, the one where he's not wearing the hat and he's got the glove posed over his, I guess it would be his left shoulder looking at camera, and the index is pointed right at screen. You can actually see that detail pretty clearly. That I just tweaked out. Good point of reference. I'll be talking about a lot of the reference material, a lot of the periodicals, a lot of the production stills as we get more into this process. Because there's a lot of comparative, aspects to it, especially where the backplate's concerned, and where it's changed and where it's visibly different. And I have a theory on the backplate. I'm not going to tell you now, I'll tell you later, that a lot of you are not going to agree with. I can guarantee it, but it's the conclusion I've come to in terms of how it's changed, why it's changed so drastically. And I'm sure it will be the point of much conjecture between the fans and the glove makers and film buffs online. Here you go. Finished piece. Done. Laying next to the DSA. We'll go ahead and fast track piece 2. And then we'll get into the last stage of this section and give you a preview of the 4th stage color, where it shifts into its proper and full, in all its glory, dynamic range. And as we start this process, I want to address something. Another agreement with my psyche that I made was that I was going to be completely transparent with this process and not do any trickery or sleight of hand. And that having been said, I did notice something, and this is again why I recommend video at all times. These 2 points that I'm demonstrating right here, because I adjusted the length of the index knuckle flat indent, the crease, it changed the dynamics of the piece. And visually, I didn't catch it, and I simply forgot to adjust those 2 right side areas to compensate. So I'm going to be pushing those out just a bit and softening that side dent, which I do anyway at the end, so it's not going to be so pronounced. And by the time I get to the next section after this color, which I've just applied to the upper piece, the first sub-stage of stage 4, there's a couple sub-stages, and here's the next stage. I decided to weather the entire thing out for this process. So here we go. Like I was saying, by the time we get to the next section of this, where you're actually going to see me wearing the glove and talking about some of the differences between what happened to the part 1 when it became the part 2, the actual screen glove, in just a minute, when I'm actually wearing it, that will have been repaired or adjusted. a little bit rounder, a little bit softer. So yeah, there are a couple substages. I decided just, as a treat, I would go the full 9 yards here and add the final weathering. And because the Part 2 is a much cleaner glove, there's really very little to do, comparatively speaking, to the Part 1. And, the Part 1, or rather the index knuckle flat, is relatively hidden even in the periodicals, and we don't really see too much of it in its visual nakedness. So, I let the metal kind of do what it wants. There are other blackened wear patterns on the other knuckles that I try to match up. I don't go crazy. Again, it's an organic process. I kind of let the glove do what it wants to do. But in terms of the index knuckle flat there, I give it a general darkness. I leave it at a charcoal. I don't go full blacks. I've seen some gloves out there, they go full blacks. It tends to make this glove look a little muddy. So, the upper portion there with the charcoal effect and the knuckle flat, that bit of weathering, I like to leave kind of translucent. Just a shade below full black. So it shifts in different lights, and we want it to look lighter in certain lighting setups, darker in other lighting setups, much like the film. And that bottom side by the rivet, that cheetah spot, I can actually go in there and gently wear that down and bleed it a bit more into the metal. I'll probably do that minor adjustment, and I may go back in and do some minor pickups along the right side there, but just a little bit more wear and tear. But essentially it's done at this point, aside from making those two minor side adjustments that I went ahead and did after I watched this. I couldn't re-age and reshoot, so I had to stick with what I had done and work with the finished piece, which you'll see coming up shortly. And also keep in mind, this camera, we're looking at forced perspective. It looks really long here, and you'll see if you look really closely as it shifts on my hand in different angles. This is forced perspective, and it skinnies things out and it longs things out when it's not just a dead-on 2D shot. You can see here it looks a little shorter from our point of view, and these are the anal things I like to point out, and because they were really the things that mucked with my ability to to duplicate these gloves over the many years that I have. So I always try to bear those things in mind and mention them when they come up in my noggin. So here's the color, and I'm putting it in different lights, and it is in natural daylight here. In my studio, because the color does shift from vibrancy to the depth of pitch, and it's always kind of important to keep in mind. But yeah, this is it. This is the final color, and really the final weathering, aside from a few little pickup spots that I'll do on this piece. And when we get to the other knuckles, I'll put a bit more care into trying to match up the weather patterns, to that close degree that I'm shooting for. All in all, not bad for a day's work, and the sheen is just right, so I'm avoiding touching it with my hands. I don't want to get it shined up any more than it needs to be. And this color will actually set and deepen just ever so slightly as the oxygen hits it and it kind of settles. So it'll become just not even a shade, just like a quarter of a shade deeper, but not much. I mean, this is pretty much it. You're looking at it. And, again, thank God I'm not starting with the Part 1, because the Part 1 is far more detail going on with the weathering. Leaps and bounds. So there you go, the two pieces next to each other. I won't be fast-tracking the color on the second piece. I really don't do the color application until the glove is done. I did this for the purposes of kind of giving you guys, this little reward of going, hey, this is what we're working towards. So we're going to we're not going to do any more color applications until I get to that section of the documentary. And hopefully this has been entertaining as we now say goodbye to the index knuckle. Goodbye. And move on to the bane of my existence. Even though the index is more difficult, the middle. And we will see you then.